Hello, welcome. Yeah, my name's Nowakowski, and I'm just going to give you a short slideshow just on what I've mapped and discovered with the rapid transition to renewables just in this state of Queensland. Yeah, so I'll be talking about what are the impacts of poorly planned industrial scale renewable projects in central Queensland and what are the options. And my story goes back to the Mount Emerald wind farm. And that was the first industrial scale wind farm in Queensland. And I was fortunate enough to document it photographically. And at the time, we thought it was a great thing. What we're looking at here is a blade that's 57 metres long, 12 tonne. And I'm showing you that image because you need to see the scale of these components. You can see here the blade cutting the corner of one of the tableland roads. In many instances, power lines need to be lifted up, street signs and so forth need to be moved to get this infrastructure to the sites of the development. And the Mount Emerald wind farm I know pretty well because it's just in my backyard. It was a beautiful plateau, untouched, never been grazed by cattle. There was never any roads pushed through the region. It was a stronghold for the northern quoll and 5 critically endangered plants, really rare plants found on this plateau. And we used to go bushwalking up there a fair bit. But we thought, okay, well, you know, renewables, that's a price we need to pay. We need to make a sacrifice. And this development was going to power 70,000 homes, which it doesn't now that it is up and operational, and I'll talk about that later. Yeah, so beautiful tableland, great plateau. This is in 2004, just a wonderland. And this is what it's like now. It's an industrial wasteland, big haulage roads, big cuttings into the mountain side. You can see a bus there in that turbine in the front right. That's a big school bus to give you a sense of scale. And it is now an industrial area. Material change of use, industrial energy production, substations, power lines, heavy industry, and basically a quarry site. And well, again, I thought this was the price we need to pay. I didn't think too much more of it, thinking, well, that's all we need in North Queensland is one big wind farm for 70,000 homes. But it doesn't. I'll show you the data later. It actually only powers enough homes for about 9,000 homes, probably enough to power the township of Atherton and maybe Herberton and a few Atherton tableland towns. So Mount Emerald came and went, and then a few years later, 3-4 years later, I found out about the Caban wind farm. So I went to photograph it, and lo and behold, clearing land for the turbine, for the haulage roads. And because I had documented Mount Emerald, I knew that it's a very brutal industry on the landscape. And this scared the hell out of me. This is another wind farm on the Atherton tablelands in really good, amazing, high elevation forests, home to the to the endangered magnificent brood frog. It's only found in this very small area. And I got the drone up in the sky, up in the air, and here we are, bulldozers clearing forests, making way for the Caban wind farm. Large amounts of land cleared and excavated. Haulage roads, turbine pads, mountain ridge tops. This is all northern quoll habitat. In actual fact, just recently we found out from the ecology report that they actually killed a northern quoll blasting out these mountains here. Rock breaking machinery, knock out the tops of the ridge lines. And you can see here they're cutting the top off the ridge line, and you can see the turbines in the background where they've done similar things. Absolutely no sediment or erosion control at all. It's not even a condition in the development. They're exempt from things like the Vegetation Management Act, the Nature Conservation Act. They can clear what they want. Any farmer or mining company would never get away with this. But these multinational wind farm companies, in this case it's Neoen, got away with it. They can do it. It's the new gold industry. Just as you can see there, huge cuttings into the hillside. You have to remember this is only a small wind farm. This is only 28 turbines compared to Shullumbin and Upper Burdekin and all the other proposed wind farms. Just go to the next slide. So like I showed you before, those turbine blades at Mount Emerald, they were 57 metres long. These ones here for Caban, they're 89 metres long, and Shullumbin will be up around 90 metres, Upper Burdekin 99. So you're looking at twice the length of the turbine blades going into these projects. And it's not necessarily just the clearing of the land, but it's the fragmentation of the forest, which opens up all this land now to weed incursions, altered fire regimes. And the botanists that we've engaged with these wind farms are now saying that the wind farms will be a key threatening process under the EPBC Act within 5 years' time. That's how devastating these wind farms are in these areas of high biodiversity. And it's these areas that are the refugia areas for climate change, and now we're destroying these refugia areas. A big issue that people haven't spoken about is, or haven't considered, the lights. All these turbines, which are 275 metres high, need to be lit up at night for the aviation industry. So now we've got bats and microbats and insects being wiped out by these lights at night. It may seem trivial, but it's the cumulative effect. This is the first of 95 projects in Queensland, right down the Great Dividing Range. 2,000 kilometres of linear length down the Great Dividing Range, covered in turbines. So there is going to be an impact. So it made me think, well, what's happening? What's next? We've just seen Mount Emerald, now Caban, and that's in North Queensland. What's happening in Central Queensland? Well, these are the projects that are happening in Central Queensland or are in the pipeline. They're not all approved, but they've been proposed. So they're either proposed at state level or federal level. At council level, they just go straight through as code accessible. There is no capacity for local council to stop any of these projects because they're all code accessible. They're not impact accessible. They go to state level, and then under State Code 23, they basically just get rubber stamped. No renewable project has been stopped at state level. They go straight through the system. And then at federal level, they can only be stopped if there's a threatened or a vulnerable or endangered species. But again, we haven't seen any stopped at all. We've just recently seen the Robbins Island one in Tasmania conditioned pretty hard, but no others. So the green ones are operational, orange are under construction, blue are awaiting approval, construction, and all the white ones are proposed. 9,800 hectares classified remnant to be cleared, 27 billion in capital. And then it makes you wonder, well, what's happening across the entire state of Queensland? Well, this is what we've mapped so far. The state government won't release this data, but when you go through all the EPBC approvals and State Code 23 approvals, but this data is already out of date. There's about 95 projects in the pipeline. I just haven't updated this spreadsheet. There's a new project being proposed every week. We just found out about the Moa Creek solar farm. That was last week. So there's a proposal every week. Now, if we look at the state of Queensland, that's the spatial footprint of all the projects across Queensland. Those green polygons are footprints of wind farms that we don't know where the haulage roads are yet, but they're the subject boundaries. And if we just zoom into this central coast area between Rockhampton and Gladstone, we can see what's going on. So all those red lines are the haulage road footprints. So a very big spatial footprint. If those national parks and state forests weren't there, they'd all be wind farms as well. The only reason they're not there is because of those national parks. So all those national parks and state forests, so the pink polygons and the green polygons are protected areas surrounded by wind farms, and all the high elevation ridge lines outside of the protected area estate will be covered in turbines, literally thousands. Now, if you zoom in a bit closer to, say, Clark Creek, this is the Clark Creek wind farm. You can see the red lines, that's the haulage road footprints, and you can see that most of the footprint is in the green area. The green area is remnant vegetation. The white areas is cleared land. Now, we thought that renewables were going to go in cleared land, but the cleared land is the flat area. The green areas are the remnant areas which have been inaccessible to the agricultural industry and to urbanisation, industrialisation. So these wind farms are being pushed up into those remnant areas, into those ridge lines and into the forest. And you can see up there in the top area, which is yellow, that's of concern vegetation. If you're a primary producer, there's no way you'd be able to clear that land, but the wind industry can clear of concern vegetation for wind turbines. This is the Clark Creek project now under construction, and you can see the amount of land clearing and roads that have been pushed through that tabletop area across the ridge lines. And again, no sediment control, no erosion control, no nothing. Yeah, big chunks of land being cleared. There's around 100 turbines going into this project. Each of those concrete pads there consists of around 1,200 cubic metres of reinforced concrete. So massive amounts of cement. In actual fact, these projects have one or two batching facilities to manufacture the concrete. If we look at Lotus Creek, which brings tears to my eyes, the most beautiful remnant forest you'll ever see in Queensland, packed with koalas and greater gliders. And when they did the ecological report here, they found 101 koalas within the project area. Many, I think around 38 females with cubs on the back. And then it was 138, I think, greater gliders found within the footprint area. Just astronomical biodiversity And koalas are now listed as endangered. And here we are completely smashing up their forests and fragmenting it. We don't even know what the noise is going to play in their breeding cycle for the calling of the male calling. This is just beautiful forest here at Lotus Creek. All those ridge lines in that photograph top left will be blasted out. Bottom right, all those ridge lines and the haulage roads are going to cut across that creek in the foreground with a bridge system or some sort of, we don't know what they're going to put across there. They're going to bloody make a mess of it, that's for sure. And and there's some of the koalas that I've photographed on the site. If you want to see koalas, go up there. Just drive on that road that cuts across that tableland west of St. Lawrence, dirt road, pull over, walk into the bush and you'll see koalas. So then I developed some mapping. You can see the photograph on the mapping, the Google Earth map on the left with the haulage road footprint. And that's the actual photograph that I've taken with the drone on the right. So basically all those hills you see in the distance will be covered in turbines. And those black dots on the image on the left, those black dots indicate turbine locations. This is the Boomer Range wind farm. Again, you can see haulage roads and turbines going into lots of yellow areas which are of concern. Vegetation types, absolutely criminal. Where are the green groups? It's just madness. The best photograph of greater gliders was on the Boomer Range wind farm site, about to be smashed up. This is the Moa Creek wind farm. Again, you've got haulage roads being punched into that purple, which is endangered dominant vegetation. So we've got haulage roads being punched into endangered vegetation, which will have no sediment control, no erosion controls. Absolutely criminal. I was fortunate to go up in a helicopter, and these are photographs of that Moa Creek site. All those photos here, these photos of the site, there'll be haulage roads punched into all of that, cut up into pieces. I've got to laugh. This is it's bloody insane. So why is it all here? Why are these wind farms up on these coastal ranges in these locations? And when we start looking at the mapping for central Queensland, you can see where all the transmission lines are. So those black lines are the transmission lines. So we've got the wind farm that's under construction right now, which is Clark Creek, stage 1. And you can see it's on the transmission line. And they've got Lotus Creek, again, connecting to the transmission line. And then we've got Boulder Creek, again on the transmission line. And then we've got Mount Hopeful. This wind farm should never go ahead. There's actually yellow belly gliders and northern quolls on the site. The ecologists found them on the site, and it's going to get smashed to smithereens. It can't be happening in this day and age. And then we've got Boomer Range, Moa Creek wind farm. Specimen Hill wind farm. And then we've got Smoky Creek solar farm. So you can see a pattern here where these renewable projects, I wouldn't say they're renewable, but anyway, they're going hard up on the transmission infrastructure. We've got Collide wind farm. Banana Range Wind Farm, Caribou Wind Farm, Outgoa, Solar Park, Boulder Combe Solar Farm, Wooderson Solar Farm. Wooderson Solar Wind Farm, Moonlight Range Wind Farm. Again, that should not go ahead. That is just beautiful, beautiful forests. So you can sort of see what's going on here. And if we do, so if we just go back, we can't go back. So you can sort of see what's going on. So all those wind farms are going onto the existing infrastructure because it's expensive to have these renewable projects away from the transmission infrastructure. So if we go back to these projects, I said before about 95. It's hard to keep track. I think there's about 96 now with the Moa solar farm that we found out about last week. And why do we need so much renewable? Why do we need so much? It's because of its low capacity factor. We need to overbuild. So with those 95 projects in the pipeline right now, that's going to deliver 22,000 megawatts at full capacity. But it only generates 15 to 35% efficiency. So you're going to divide that by 3. So it's only going to deliver, say, 6 megawatt, but we need 10,000 megawatt in Queensland. So we need to double those projects. But then we need to also back it all up by gas in case the wind isn't blowing. And people say, well, pumped hydro, but pumped hydro is only going to deliver 3 hours, 6 hours, maximum 24 hours of electricity. But that's going to take 10, 15, 20 years to build with costs of 20 to 30, 40 billion dollars. So with all those projects in the pipeline so far, how much land is to be cleared? So we're looking at around least concern remnant, around 26,000 hectares. But you have to remember that's just for the footprint. There's also the edge effect. So when you punch a road through, and we've calculated 4,600 kilometres of brand new haulage roads to be pushed through with those 95 projects. And with the edge effects, with the weed incursions that will go in and all the damage to the forests either side of those roads, we're looking at around 200,000 hectares of land to be impacted upon with those projects. So we're looking at, yes, and that's quite a conservative amount because even in the State Energy and Jobs Plan published by the State Labor Party, they're saying for us to achieve 10 gigawatt, we're going to have to occupy around 600,000 hectares of land. But you have to remember that's only for 10 gigawatt of installed capacity. We need to double that or triple it because of the low capacity factor. And then if we go to all electric transport, we're going to have to double or triple that again. And then if we want redundancy, we have to double or triple that again. And then for hydrogen, we have to double or triple that again. And then to become a green superpower, double or triple that again. And the net zero report that was published, which is was a really good piece of science. they're saying that it's going to cost somewhere between 7 to 9 trillion over the next 37 years to achieve those targets. So why do we need so much renewable? Because of the low capacity factor. And this graph tells the story. So those first few images I showed you in this presentation of the Mount Emerald wind farm, this is the data for the entire year of 2022. So you can see that for well over 100 days of 2022, it generated less than 10 megawatt of electricity. If we break it down, in the year 2022, the average output was 48 megawatt. But you have to look at the median, because the median is really how we look at the data, because the data set's on the lower end of the data set. So Mount Emerald only had a capacity factor of 18.1%. So for 63 days in 2022, Mount Emerald produced 0 electricity. So we're going to need hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Mount Emerald wind farms to try to deliver the electricity required for Queensland. People need to understand that. And from my perspective, it's complete delusion. When we start talking about hydrogen, this just blows my entire brain. This is one project in WA, the Murchison hydrogen footprint. There's 3 projects like this up the WA coast. This one here consists of 700 turbines over 50,000 hectare footprint with 10,000 hectares of solar panels, which will require the dredging out of a deep water port. Absolute delusion. And this is Murchison National Park, and the turbines will be across the horizon there. So my thoughts are, should we be clearing and fragmenting forests for renewables? Are we going down the wrong path? Where is our model for 100% renewables, and which countries are carbon free? It is a climate emergency and all options need to be on the table. So what are the solutions? And everyone has their solutions, but where I've come to in my journey on this is that we need good renewables, so rooftop solar, small community grids, locally owned wind farms, some industrial with social licence, on altered or degraded land, without impacting culturally significant sites and high biodiverse areas. And the no-brainer is nuclear. Nuclear must be a part of our solution. And I now see nuclear as an important piece of the solution to the climate crisis. And nuclear, combined with appropriately placed renewables, is a safe, cost-effective way to rapidly reduce fossil fuel generation. Yeah, so James Hansen, who first warned of global warming, says nuclear power must be a part of the solution. Dick Smith, who was quite vocal even against the Mount Emerald wind farm back in those early days, he knew that it was delusional. And even our Professor Bill Lawrence here at James Cook University, he even wrote an open letter with his colleagues, an open letter to environmentalists, pleading with them that nuclear energy must be a part of the solution. Nuclear eliminates the need for new transmission lines and provides enormous power generation in a tiny footprint. 61% of Australians recently polled are in favour of further investment in nuclear. And we need a fast transition off fossil fuels, and renewables can help in this regard. Yeah, so nuclear is really ramping up around the world. Rolls-Royce constructing SMRs through England. Poland's going nuclear. The UAE, where the COP28 is being held right now, they've just built 3 1 gigawatt nuclear plants within 10 years. South Africa's going nuclear. China's starting construction on 12 1 gigawatt plants every year using their own proprietary designs. So Australia just has to get on the bandwagon and get on with it really. So I think you'll find over time people like me will come out and support nuclear energy. Yeah, so thank you, and thank you for following me on my journey, and I hope you've learned something about how brutal the renewable energy industry is in Queensland and what's in store. And we really need to stop this madness. It's just crazy. So thank you.